Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Lisa V TV, where you're going to learn and you're going to hear from one of my newest friends, a special guest that I am sure you're going to really enjoy and learn all about what she's up to in the world and how God is using her in a really unique way. So let me introduce you to Dr. Lisa Dorsey. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's such an honor and a privilege to be with everyone today.
You are welcome, and I love your name. We're already connected with our name. So let me formally introduce Lisa, and then we're going to jump right into some really great conversation here. So Lisa's expertise is in writing, consulting, speaking, educating, and mentoring. She has a doctorate in public administration and a PhD in theology. She has served as a co-pastor for over 20 years, and for 28 years, she owned and operated business in the healthcare industry. Very well-rounded. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Lisa really feels called to share her knowledge from years of business and ministry experience and to share her heart to help women in ministry find their identity, step into their purpose, and own their voice through training, mentorship, community, and story. So
Yes.
Lisa is currently working on 2 books due to release at the end of 2023. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of those today, maybe even 2. And we'll introduce that as we get into. So welcome to today's call, Lisa.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you do have a really interesting mix of background in terms of education and experience in both business, ministry, and academia, for that matter, administration. So I would love to start our conversation today with telling and helping our listeners understand how you actually came to do what you're doing today and what it is that you're doing today.
Okay. Well, my journey, it's been a long journey in business and leadership, but what I'm doing today just was a transition of last year when I set myself out to retire from the business sector. I had run my own home health agency for 28 years. And it was a huge transition for me. I was at the point where I was feeling burnt out. I was feeling dispassionate. This is something that the Lord had given me, this business. And I was so passionate when I started out 20 years ago. And I had started to get into a very vulnerable state because I was feeling like I was letting God down because He had blessed me with this business. He had blessed me with to do something that I was so passionate about. And it was such a financial blessing for me and my family. And so I was feeling guilty. I felt like I let God down. I felt like I let my employees down, my clients down. And so it took me about a good 4 months to start unpacking these emotional feelings that I was going through. And I had to quiet down my spirit. I had to quiet down just my soul, just to be able to hear from God. And when I did hear from Him, it was just such an amazing experience. God said, "I'm not disappointed in you, daughter." And the thing is that the Lord said, because I had been having this burning passion in my gut to want to do more in ministry, and being in the marketplace, it just consumes so much of my time. And so here goes those feelings again of feeling guilty about dividing my time in the marketplace and then in ministry. So over the past 2 years, I've been having this burning passion inside of me to do more in ministry, specifically women in ministry, and work with women leaders. So when God spoke to my heart finally, He said, "I've been trying to get you to do this for the last 2 years. You were the one who was holding on to it." And so that was so reassuring. And now my next step was like, okay, God, well, what am I supposed to do next? And that's the story I'm here to tell you today.
Wow. I think that's a common feeling with women who are impact driven, want to give, that they feel this sense of guilt whenever they're doing something outwardly, the guilt of not spending time here or there or wherever it might be. And that's a very, very important subject, that to be able to look at that too, because whether we're going to talk about that today or not, but I think that's very common. I'm sure women listening today would be able to resonate with that. And I think, I don't know if you find this particularly with women who are what I would say more high capacity in their ability to kind of do multiple things at the same time,
Yes.
in the same season of life.
Very much so. And I think that was part of my drive to get so much education, right?
Mm,
Because in the marketplace, we're competing not only against our male
mm,
counterparts, right? But
yeah.
we're also competing against our female counterparts. And the sad part in the business
Mm,
world is that unless you get connected to a group of like-minded women, the women can be pretty catty and they can sometimes be worse than the men. And my
very
experience in the
true.
business world is that I received more support from the men than I did the women.
Wow, it's so
Yes,
true. Yes, and I think that is a sad state of reality, that many women feel have been hurt by other women
yes,
for multiple reasons, various reasons. And I think that, if you're listening today and you're a woman who has been hurt, and it's been hard for you to even build those relationships because of trust factors or lack of trust factors, and I want to encourage you to not settle, because I believe that that's a ploy of the enemy to bring separation, division, and God wants to bring a restoration in that area. Lisa,
yes.
tell me a little bit about how vulnerability has shaped your message that you feel called to
Okay.
deliver. Hmm.
Before I go there, I just want to say, Lisa, this is the one thing that this is why I connected with you
Mm,
and with Girl Power Alliance, is because felt like I found a community of women where I could be vulnerable, where I
mm,
could open up and I could
wow,
share my vision and not feel like I was in competition,
wow,
because this is all about Jesus. It's all about the kingdom and kingdom building.
so
And so
true.
that's actually why I'm here today. And
Wow.
now I can be vulnerable. Again, like I said, I was always after that next degree,
Hmm.
trying to get more and more education so that I can outsmart the next person, right? Be better than the person next to me. And now I feel like I can just be me. And that's the
Wow.
part of vulnerability that I'm speaking about, because vulnerability speaks of our life journey. And
Hmm.
vulnerability asks us to share our pain, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It requires us to be authentic. And actually, our message and our voice is born out of vulnerability.
So true. This is an area, as a speaking coach, I help women to craft their message and to really tap into what is that unique contribution that you are called to bring to the world. And I wholeheartedly believe that part of that is owning your unique story, your unique message, and the part of that. But here's what I find a lot of women struggle with is actually owning that story, being able to go to those places that maybe were emotional places, and or just places that where they were vulnerable. And I love what you're saying here, because I believe there's great power in that, because that's really where our true self comes to the forefront as well, when we're able
Mm,
to talk about how we've overcome and be
true.
vulnerable in that place, not for just being vulnerable, but for the sake of seeing and helping others see, what, if I can do this, you can do this.
Right.
God is wanting to take those areas that maybe were painful and really even shameful at times, but turn them into a place where it actually is a beautiful message that God wants, a tapestry that He wants to bring forth, and for Him to be glorified, but also as part of the gift that we give to the world. So share with me, if you will, if you're willing to do that, some of those vulnerable moments.
Okay. Well, first, I want to say that by nature, I was already a recluse and a very private person. So even after the Lord had settled me in my spirit, I still felt kind of unsettled because that was kind of like my underlying personality. But the Lord had directed me to Romans 8:38, which kind of
Mm,
has been the foundation for everything that I've done going forward. And that is that all things work together to good to
mm,
them that love God and to those who are called according to his purpose. And so while the whole issue about vulnerability for me was that I used, as I said before, my educational achievements and my accolades in order to excel, and it helped mask the pain and all
mm,
the insecurities and fears and doubts that I was feeling throughout my journey in leadership and business. And it even helped me to cope with rejection, imposter syndrome, and in some cases even racism.
mm,
But what Romans 8:38 did for me is that it was a mindset shift for me.
mm,
The Lord began to tell me that those things that caused you pain, those things God said that he's going to work together for good.
mhm.
And the thing is that he's calling us to partner with him. So
Yeah,
we're partnering with God to bring about his purposes. So it really what God is doing is he's making purpose out of our pain.
I love
And
that.
that purpose out of pain, it requires the vulnerability. And then our pain becomes part of our message. So the
Mhm,
message that God was forging inside of me for this season for women, it required me to now tell my story. And I had
mm.
to open up, and I was obedient to God, and I'll never be the same.
Wow. So for those who don't know what Romans, you did say 8:38, right?
8:38, yes.
Yeah, so it says, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor
Oh,
any."
that's not the one. It's the one where it says
28, must be 28, I
28, 28. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I think
Thank you.
so. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Yes. Is that the one?
Yes, it
Beautiful.
is. Yes, thank you.
Beautiful. I love how you just started that out and saying that you were a natural recluse. Like
Mhm. Yes,
I laugh because God is so humorous.
he is. He really is.
He takes, the because I'm the same. I would call myself more of an introverted person, but yet God said, "No, you are, but guess what? I want to put you here." So I think that that really brings hope to people as they hear that, Lisa, what you're talking about, and also can resonate. I know that what you talked about, even just hiding behind some of our accolades, and
Mhm.
why do you think that is? Why do you think we do that?
I think imposter syndrome, and that whole notion of imposter syndrome is that we it's perfectionism. That's what's behind imposter
There you
syndrome.
go.
We're
There you go.
always, wanting to do better, not thinking that this time was good enough. And so
Mm,
we're always trying to get the next best message, do the best next best thing, instead of doing what finally the Lord told me to do, was to quiet my spirit and look to me. It
mm,
was my own self-sufficiency. I was looking to myself and my own self-sufficiency instead of
mm,
looking to the God of my salvation. And now I know better than that, right? I have a PhD in theology. I was in ministry, but it's one thing to have a head knowledge of it, and
mm.
another thing to make it your posture.
Wow. Wow. Wow, Lisa, I just love your humility. I just
Yeah,
love that you're, highly educated, highly experienced in all different areas, and yet there is this humble spirit, that humbleness towards the Lord. Say, God, I just want to serve you. I don't know anything apart from you. And I'm just blessed by that as I listen to you. And I feel like that is part of the unique gift that God is using through you
thank
to
you.
bring forth the contribution. Because I believe many women are caught in that trap of
Right.
of fearing judgment or fearing rejection if they truly allowed themselves to be seen and heard in who they really are. And um and that perfectionism, say, you know what, I don't have it all together. And that is such a lie from the pit of hell. that
Yes,
we
it
have
is.
to be, that we have to have everything flawless. It's such a lie. And I know that I have been delivered from perfectionism because I realized this is an unattainable. Well, actually, what happened, I'll just put a little segue in here because this is such a huge issue, I believe, for women, perfectionism. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I
Yes,
see.
as a matter of fact, God is humorous, like you said before, right? Here's the perfect interview, and I'm quoting Romans 8:38 instead of 8:28. God is so humorous, right?
That's okay. That's all right, right? Exactly. It's like I that is a beauty fit. You know what? Because we are not called, and I think with this theology where it says be perfect even as your father is perfect, but that word doesn't mean what our North American term perfect means. It doesn't mean being flawless without fault. It means holy. It means complete.
Yes, yes,
Um, and God just really drilled this into me years ago when in Colossians 2, 8, 9, 9 and 10, I think, actually, somewhere in there. So don't quote me on that, but Colossians 2, 9 and 10, it says, like, we are complete through our union with Christ. And that
yes.
word is the same word as perfect in terms of we are complete. And I believe that's what we need to latch onto rather than getting it all right or coming across as without fault. So I just want to say if you're listening here today and that's an area you struggle with, renounce that lie of the enemy. You do not
Amen.
have to
That's
be
right.
flawless. You just
That's
need to
right.
be obedient to the Lord and let him get the glory, even in those times, like it says in Corinthians, that our weakness is a portal for his power. So I'm curious too, because I know you talk about the voice and you talk about purpose, but in your message, there's an element of the identity that
Yes.
informs purpose and voice. How does that go together?
Well, we were just speaking about it right now. Our identity has to be in Jesus Christ. We can't look to ourselves. We can't look to our self sufficiency because then we are going to have those imposter syndrome issues. But if we
Mm,
know whose we know who we are, and then we know
yeah.
whose we are. We're daughters of the Most High God. And when we look at scripture and see what God says about us, when he created male and female, he said it was good. His work
Mm,
was good. We're fearfully and wonderfully
so
made.
good.
And our life is hid in Jesus Christ. And
So,
that's what cancels out this whole notion of perfectionism. Our
mm,
life is hid in him. And
that's
we
so
take on his righteousness. And because we take on his righteousness, guess what? We get to make mistakes and it's okay. We learn from those mistakes. And those
mhm.
mistakes which cause us pain, those
Yeah,
that pain now becomes our story that God makes all things together good for his purpose. So
so good.
identity is key. Identity is key. It's first and foremost. We have to know what we're speaking out of. We're
Mhm,
speaking out of our identity in Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross. But if we speak out of our own selves, then we're relying on our self-sufficiency and
mm.
we know that we're flawed human beings.
It's so true. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by voice in this context?
Yes, so voice, I mean God, our God-given voice, and so that's our uniqueness.
Mm,
It's our quirkiness and our unique way of doing things. It's how God molded us on his potter's wheel. And
mm,
so it's what sets us apart. It's our why, and our why is our story.
mm,
It can also be our unique delivery, how it's crafted for our specific audience, the
mm,
audience that God has entrusted to us for his purposes. So when we know our audience and
mm,
we're speaking specifically to our audience that has entrusted to us, that audience will give you the grace that you need, especially when you're first starting out and all the words don't come out right and you're nervous. If you're just authentically you and
mhm,
you're speaking from your heart to your people,
mhm.
then they give you the grace that you need.
That is so, so good. I love how you said that because yeah, there's if we are being true to who we really are, then that's going to shine through no matter if we don't get the words right or the scriptures right.
Right. But then there's your Speakers Academy that'll help us with all of those issues
That's
to
just
perfect our
refining.
gift.
That's right. That's just refining the skills.
Yes, yes, indeed.
That's a whole different discussion, but we do part of that is the freedom because even if we have the skill, like we've created systems and we're not truly free to speak from
Mhm.
that authentic place and that voice, then it's not going to have the same impact anyway.
Right, right.
That's the special sauce, as they say, in terms of the freedom to be who we truly are called to be. So, can you share a little bit about how purpose is tied to passion? Because I hear a lot of women
Yes.
also talk about this area as well.
Yes. So again, mine is your God-given purpose.
Mhm.
So we're telling our story, and it's a portal to the glory of God. So your pain has
Beautiful.
purpose,
Yes.
and everything you've been through is going to work together for God's glory. Where
Mm.
we bring the glory of God to others. That's why we must tell our story. We're carriers of his
Yes.
glory.
Good.
And I remember last year when I was in this transition state, I felt like a slingshot. I felt like I was the rock, and God was pulling back on that sling, and He was. I had to go back. I had to relearn things. I had to have a mindset shift, and He was pulling and tugging on me, and that
Mm.
tension. It wasn't very pleasant. But when God finally felt like I was ready, or He was ready to let me go, when he, that slingshot, how that
Yes.
tension, when that rock goes forward, now you're propelling forward faster and further. So
Mm.
whatever your starting point was, when God's done with you, now you're out there faster and further. And so purpose is tied to our pain, and it's tied to God's purposes for his glory. And we're
Mm.
his glory carriers.
Yes, that is so beautiful. I love that, and I love what you just said there. And I put it into a phrase: "Story, your story is a portal to His glory."
Yes. Yes.
we we are carriers of His presence, and our
Mhm.
job is to release
Amen.
that. Mhm.
Amen.
So, for those listening today, Lisa, who may be wondering about how they can develop their God-given voice. Can you share a few points to help them?
Yes. It ties back first to identity, and then knowing what your purpose is.
Mhm.
And then you can begin to narrow down who your audience is. Who is God calling you to? And usually it's going to be people who are familiar with your pain points,
Mm,
because that's your passion, your
yeah.
area of passion. And you're going to attract people who are also going through similar things that you've gone through. And so your purpose and your voice is rooted in your identity, and your audience is going to be the people that God has purposed to you to bring the good news of Jesus Christ, and to bring just healing, not only healing, but to help you to move forward, and for them now, for your audience now, to be able to propel forward in God's purposes and be His glory carriers as well. So it's ministry. It
Mm,
really is ministry.
wow.
It's God allows us to be in the marketplace doing ministry. Isn't that phenomenal? That's amazing.
It is. It really is. And when we see all of life as an extension of ministry, it becomes so much freer to, and there's not this compartmentalizing of things in our life that we're just
Yes.
free to move in and out of wherever we are. We have some people just reiterating some of the things you said. Kathy says she loves a slingshot analogy, that
Good.
she feels so there. She's with
Yes.
you, right, Kathy?
Yes.
And Fanny is saying that, yes, we take on his righteousness. Mistakes are okay. They certainly are. we have to be willing to allow those. So I know that you have some special books about to be released this year. I'd love it if you would
Yes.
share with us a little bit about your upcoming book. Actually, you can share about both of them. One is Petra, an Unbroken Legacy, and the other one is The Making of a Deborah.
Yes. So Petra and Unbroken Legacy is a fictional book, and it's in the genre of biblical fiction.
Mm.
And it takes us back to a journey to, it's a dual timeline, but it takes us back to the first century on the day of Pentecost. If you read that there were several people groups that were present on the day of Pentecost, and the Arabs were one of those groups. And so in my novel, the Arabs take back the message of Jesus Christ to what we would consider Petra or near Petra. And then if you look at the story of Saul, when he was converted on the road to Damascus, he went to Damascus. And of course, the first thing he did is he wanted to go straightway to the synagogue and preach Jesus. That was just that was Paul's personality.
Yeah.
Saul at the time. So when he actually had to escape Damascus because they wanted to kill him, because now he was preaching Jesus. And he said he went straightway to Arabia. So this is where my story now puts Saul at the time with the newly formed Christians or new believers in Arabia. Now you bring that forth to the 21st century, there's been an unbroken legacy of this Christian faith in this family. And that unbroken legacy is now in jeopardy. And so we have two protagonists. We have Dr. Issa Stevens, who is a renowned archaeologist, and we have Kasim, who is also an archaeologist, but he's more than that. He is this powerful, wealthy, and I can't leave out devastatingly handsome man who actually met Dr. Issa Stevens in a archaeology camp when they were in their teenage years. So, things happened and they had to go their separate ways. And now they're brought back together to go on this journey to find these lost scrolls or lost letters that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Arab Christians.
Wow.
So it's about intrigue, drama, romance, and the forging of alliances and faith in Jesus Christ.
That's so cool. In fact, that was the word I was just going to say. It sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when is that one due to be released?
In either December, the end of December, beginning of January.
Okay.
And the next book, it's actually a Bible study, The Making of a Deborah. And this one is interesting too, because I came together to do an anthology with a group of women leaders. They were pastors' wives, they were pastors, they were just Christian women in leadership. And we did an anthology, and my chapter was called The Making of a Deborah. And so I decided to make a Bible study out of that.
Fantastic.
And so it's born out of my experiences as a leader in the marketplace for 28 years. And also my curiosity as to how Deborah was able to get men in an era of patriarchal dominance, how she was able to get them to follow her.
Wow.
And how we can learn from that to be effective women in ministry and in leadership.
Wow, that sounds like a powerful study.
Yes.
Absolutely. I can't wait for both of those to come out. Yes, very intriguing indeed. Well, Lisa, I would love to, we could keep talking here all day.
I know.
I'm sure. I feel that. I know that you have a free gift that you want to offer to our listeners.
Yes.
And maybe tell a little bit about what that is. So I'm going to put up your website here for our listeners to go there, and you can scroll down. You'll find this at the middle of her page. But tell us a little bit about what it is that you want to give them.
So I give a little bit more in-depth information on what it means to own your God-given voice. And so I talk a little bit about what we mentioned here today, that it's grounded in first your identity and who you are in Jesus Christ, and that it's your own uniqueness, and that you don't have to change. We change in the sense that we want to better ourselves as daughters of the Most High God, but we don't have to become somebody that we're not. We don't
Mm,
have to look at someone else and say, oh, I wish I could talk like her. I wish I could deliver like this person. It's about you being authentically you. And then it gives those strategies of how to perfect our God given voice. So we're
mm.
perfecting our gift. We're not trying to perfect ourselves, because
So
remember,
good.
perfection comes from who we are and whose we are.
So good. I love that. Perfect your gifts, not who you are, because
Yes,
you are perfect in Christ already.
that's right. See, you said it better than me.
No, I'm just reiterating. That's all right. What a joy. What a pleasure to have this conversation. I look forward to getting to know you more and to reading your books. And please go, those who are listening, go to her website, pick up that free gift. You will be so blessed, and engage with Dr. Lisa on Facebook or on social media, and journey with Dr. Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
You are most welcome. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. And make sure that you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, lisav.tv, and pass this on to a woman that you know would be blessed and inspired, and just really helped in their journey with Christ, and in their journey of becoming who God has called them to be. I look forward to connecting with you the next time. And thank you for tuning in, and have a beautiful day.